Questions?
Questions it is. Over here, Sam.
I know you guys get some time off before you face Alabama, but what kind of impact did that game have on you and on this program last season?
Well, the fact that we were blown out, I don't know that it can have any kind of positive impact at all. So, as I've said before, starting this year, everybody's trying to compare this season to last season. It's two different teams. There's a lot of people that played in that game last year and aren't even on the field. So what we've done, from a chronological standpoint, immediately after that, there were some changes in personnel. I think that's probably the biggest thing that came out of that, there were some guys that were in starting roles and critical roles that were replaced. And the last 4 games of the season, we won a couple of them, and we're within a touchdown of the other 2. So, and then won the bowl game. So I think probably the biggest immediate impact coming out of that was the personnel changes.
To the left, Cease.
Kevin, do some teams need a mid-season bye worse than other ones in your experience, and where do you feel this team is as far as the bye is concerned?
It just depends on really your luck during the year. There's teams that have had players that are, done for the year early. I just was, this is really the first week I've been able to pay attention to some other things around the country, and just looking at teams like Notre Dame, I didn't realize had those kind of injuries early. Miles Jack being out, critical players. I think Michigan lost one of their best players this week. So, all across the country, at different times, you hope for the best, and there's no real way to say what's the best time for a bye week. For us right now, it's good. We've played, really 2 league opponents and 2 divisional opponents and won those games, played a top, 15 team to open the season in a neutral site with Arizona State. So, to win those games, come back home, open the new Kyle Field, it comes in a good time for us. I think, we had a lot of rotation early at linebacker due to either suspension or injury, and then obviously we've got some guys that have played 2 pretty tough games here at the end, SEC games. So yeah, it comes at a good time for us. Something we did not have the luxury of last year, and we went 8 straight weeks, and I think out of that 8 weeks we played, I don't know how many top 5 or 6 opponents. So yeah, this season's very different.
Down front, Brent.
How nice was it to be able to redshirt Avery Genesee last year? Do you have any kind of stories from his recruitment and how he's played for you so far?
Yeah, Avery and Jermaine Illuminor were 2 of the top JC offensive linemen available, a couple of years ago, and the ability to be able to get those types of talents and redshirt them. They weren't real happy at first, but I think they understood, and particularly Avery, that strength-wise, he wasn't all the way there. Athletically, he's extremely gifted, and he's still working at the strength and the mental part of the game. But the redshirt year really helped him. To come in and just start playing left tackle in this league is not very easy, and it's pretty hard at practice too, based on the guys he's got to go against. So it's been kind of an eye-opening experience for him, and it's kind of funny. You get over to East Mississippi where he was, and we had a couple players at Houston that were there, had gone to school there. We'd sign, and you think it's a big deal when you have the picture with the players, that are at your place, and then even here, and I walked by in the office and I said, "See that? I've been around a bunch of guys who've had success from here." And he looked up at the picture and he said, "Is that you?" So he's passed that the whole time. That's what those pictures do of you in the coach's office. Is my point. That's overrated. He just wasn't aware. He's just a fun guy to be around, and he wants to get better. And his mom is just a great lady and wants the best for him. And he's come the hard road. From Memphis to junior college, in high school to junior college, and this is a guy that works extremely hard at the game, has a tremendous upside, and is getting better every week.
Go to the back, KO, and then Gabe.
Coach, you mentioned in the post-game press conference the mental side of the game. There's so much going on physically with these guys getting beat on week to week. With the week off, obviously the physical side, they'll get some rest. What do you do mentally then for them? Is there any specific program, or do you just give them some time? They
need time. They need time away from me. They need time away from you, who tell them how good they are, or how bad they are, or who screwed up. That's the truth. And, to play at this level, I've said it before, the biggest deal, guys make a transition from high school. Yeah, you're playing against like players, like talents sometimes, but, not every week does that happen. And number two, when you screw up in high school, you might be on the Friday night blitz or that deal. You might have a picture of you in the paper, but you don't have to watch it over and over and over and over again all Saturday night on every channel that's running sports, and then the next day, and then have people talk about it all day Monday on Overreaction Monday, I call it. So, for those guys, they're still kids. And I think people forget about that. And, at the level that we play in this league, it's a really, really high level, but it's not professional football. And I think sometimes people forget that because these guys go to class too. And they have, about this time of year, they've got midterm exams. They've got papers they got to turn in. It's not they come up here and just play football. So there are a lot of other things that they go through from a mental stress point. I think that's why, this time of year you see some teams and some guys not performing very well because there are other things that are going on. The proverbial wall, hitting the wall, particularly for young guys, happens around this time of year, and there's no coincidence that you're starting to see the first real round of exams, things coming in, papers that are due. And then also defenses are changing for young guys that have had success, and they're seeing different looks. And, now the expectation for those guys is to play as well as they've played the early part of the year when there wasn't that expectation. Everything was just fun then. But now it's different. So, the physical part of it is a big deal. But I also think that there's a mental aspect that gets left out and that you have to be sensitive to, and probably we're being more sensitive to it this year than last year because, I think that's something that we neglected last year.
To the right here, Gabe.
Coach, I wanted to ask you about Brian Dawkins, and how did you guys connect with him, and what kind of impact does it make when you bring in a guy that was a 9-time Pro Bowler to spend a week with you guys?
Well, he's a guy that we've had a lot of respect for. A guy that obviously had a tremendous NFL career. An analyst on ESPN, but a guy that we reached out to, and Mikado Henson and a number of and the coaches just have a lot of respect for, and so we got him in to really speak to the team during fall camp. We've had a number of different guys that come in and visit with us, and so really just kind of hit it off with him philosophically, the way he played the game, with the passion that he played the game, and really for us, really was kind of a good fit. And I think as he was here, he kind of understood because he hadn't done a lot of that. But kind of bonded with our team, got to know the guys, and then we stayed in touch. And then he wanted to come back out, so he's out here for 3 days this time. So he came on Wednesday and hung around, and was on the sideline. You saw that, and so he's a guy that I think without asking him this, you don't play at the level he played for the length of time that he played and not miss football a little bit. And so the ability to be able to fill a little bit of that void for him and be around our guys and be in the locker room and talk, he loved that. And there's no doubt that he's had an impact on a lot of our players individually.
Go to the left, Chip, and then Sam.
Kevin, did you have a offensive player ejected for targeting before, and did you ask for an explanation from the league office?
Have I had an offensive player ejected for? Not that I can remember. No, I have not. Not right off the top of my head. We'll get that back from them. I usually talk to Steve on Tuesday. We usually send in all our stuff either yesterday or Sunday, and then he gets back to me. So I saw the TV copy though, and I guess somehow in between being doing the commentary in the game, Brent Musburger was able to talk to Steve Shaw. You guys didn't see that? I just saw the TV copy the other day, so
All right.
we'll see it. But there's different angles of that deal. Those are always going to be in it, and you got to remember that the rule has changed. I think dramatically since it's been put in place. And it gets back to defenseless player. So it's not necessarily a targeting rule. The defenseless player rule applies to, let's say, you have a interception, okay? And guys, you see it all the time. Used to see it all the time where you've got a change of possession, the ball's picked off. Here comes a guy who peels back around, and he's chasing the ball carrier, a whole lineman. And here comes a guy and just hits him where he doesn't see him. That also applies under the targeting, the defenseless player rule now. So, there's been questionable calls with that, but I think, it's more than just targeting. It's the defenseless player, and not necessarily helmet to helmet. The way I understand it is anything above the shoulder. That makes sense? So if I come at you, whether it's shoulder, forearm, whatever that is, above the shoulder, then, you combine that with a defenseless, a guy who's not looking, then it can be interpreted that way. So it's, the rule has expanded for player safety, which I agree with.
Okay, Sam.
You touched on it briefly earlier, but about the differences between this year and last. Why do you feel like this team is different from last year, aside from strictly personnel?
That's the biggest difference. We got different players.
But in terms of attitude, is there a different attitude?
We've got different players, and the players that played the end of the year are a year older. So from a maturity standpoint, the guys who are here are a year older, a year stronger, and a year better. And then we have a number of guys who aren't here anymore. So the chemistry of our team is completely different, particularly this time last year when we had a different quarterback. We had a lot of different guys playing out there. And so, we've got 3 new coaches. We've got guys on the field who hadn't played in last year's game, like Christian Kirk. And then we've got guys who are older and a year better, like Donovan Wilson, Armani Watts, and a number of guys that are playing pretty well right now. So, yeah, to me, it's got a completely different feel.
Do you feel like you are in a different from your perspective personally?
I haven't
Whether
thought about that.
philosophically or
I don't know if I'm different. That's you guys figure that out.
We'll go right in front, Lee, and then we'll go Brent.
Hey, Coach, I guess what you say, what's the biggest question mark that maybe you hope to address during this bye week or that surrounds your team?
We got plenty of questions, so I'm here today. So I don't know. You guys, I'm not. We're just this whole year. You've heard me talk about from day one that what we're trying to do is get better every week across the board. And as a coach, my job is to take the things that we're doing well and try to accentuate those, but also stay ahead of the curve, because that's what people are scheming against. They're not scheming against what you do bad. They're trying to take away what you do well. So whatever that is, offensively, defensively, or special teams, we're trying to expand on that, not be too complicated, but move. And things that we aren't doing well, we're either trying to figure out, is it scheme, is it personnel, is it both? And then the quicker you can fix that, the better off you'll be as a team. So, you know, there's all kinds of areas that obviously when you're 5-0, you're doing a lot of things better than you're doing things poorly. But you better pay attention to what you're doing poorly, and you know, it's not my job to sit up here and tell everybody what we're not doing very well so that they can attack it.
We'll go down front, Brent, and then Darryl in the back.
As you mentioned earlier, one of the guys that's different from last year is Coach Chavis. I know you know what kind of coordinator you were getting in him, but is there anything that surprised you or pleasantly surprised you about his 10 months since he's been here?
No, I think yeah, you heard me say right from the beginning, it was a good fit for both of us. I think he was at a place at a time that he was ready for a change, and we were obviously in the same place. And so, you know, his ability to come in here and communicate with our coaches, with recruiting as it was going on at that point, and I think really with the players has been the big deal. And the buy-in was immediate. You know, I think you know, we haven't we're not great, but we've definitely improved, and you see signs that we're getting better. And you know, we'll see here coming up, because we're going to get challenged in different ways from different types of teams. But I like our energy. I like the pace that we play with on defense, and our scheme. We're a lot more aggressive on the perimeter, which, you know, we've got to clean some things up from a penalty standpoint across the board as a team. But you know, certainly the you know, the last 2 weeks being +4 in the turnover margin to 0. That's a team deal. You know, we've gotten better hanging on to the ball, but we've also started to create turnovers. We only had 13 the whole year last year, and I think we've bypassed that, or right at it already. So, you know, from that standpoint, our guys, that means two things. Not only are you getting the ball out, but that means that you've got guys running the ball, and when it's on the ground, you're getting it, and it's not being possessed by the other team. Or we got guys breaking on tip balls and things like that. So the effort's there, but you know, I think the attitude has been good, and then the ability for us to talk during the week, offensively and defensively, about, you know, how we would attack each other. I think that's been also helpful. So, you know, we've really, I think, if you look at us schematically right now, we're a completely different team schematically, offensively and defensively, and special teams wise than we were this point last year. So that's probably the biggest difference, Dan. You know, we've got more personnel on the field, which we've got to be able to communicate a little bit more. But you know, Caden Smith played 45 or 50 plays in this last game, which that never would have happened a year ago. And Jordan Davis is playing, and we're rotating different people, and you know, we're playing 5 DNs and 5 or 6 defensive tackles, and so yeah, from a schematic standpoint, we're a lot different.
Go back, Darryl, and then Aubrey in the Astro jersey will wrap us up.
Coach, I meant to ask you last week about Taylor Bertolette missing the field goal that would have won your game against Arkansas in regulation, but I didn't. But were you guys able to figure out maybe what happened there? And then you trotted him out for that 55-yarder that he nailed. Can you just kind of talk about the fact that you appear to have not lost any confidence in Taylor at all?
He missed it. I mean, what did we figure out? You know, you play golf? Okay, do you miss it every now and then? There you go. All right, but I see guys that play on Thursday through Sunday that miss it too, and so you know, he's gotten better. You know, the week before we praised him because you know he had what? How many touchbacks?
Perfect.
He was perfect. You know, a couple of weeks before with 5 touchbacks or whatever it was, and so we, you know, the guy, his standard right now was being perfect, so he missed one. And I think somebody said on the TV copy, I just said, hey, that's okay. We'll be fine. So all we got to do is worry about what's going to happen here in overtime. And, you know, you have to have a certain amount of confidence in people, and I guess what we see is different than what y'all see. Y'all see Saturday for 3.5 hours. I see Monday through Friday and Saturdays 3.5 hours, and all day Saturday in the hotel what it looks like, you know, in his eyes. So it's easier to make those type of decisions when you're around people 7 days a week instead of for 3 hours a day.
All right, Aubrey, last one.
You mentioned a little bit a while ago about the self-scouting and your offense, talking about how you'd attack your defense and that sort of thing. How does that process work for you guys during the self-scouting? I mean, does your offensive staff look at the defensive tape, and what's that like, you know, during this bye week that y'all get to do that? Without going into too many specifics, of course.
How can you do that? Huh? You want me to just tell you what we're doing up there right now? No, we do a certain amount of that every week, and just from a schematic standpoint, and I think you know, the ability to have a staff where you're able to look and say, hey, look, what is this? What do you think they're trying to do here? That happens. I think right now everybody's got situational or computer-generated self-scout things that look at, you know, where you are, what your tendencies are, and what you've done over the time, because you start to develop a profile. You've heard it before. You know, as a coordinator, the best thing you can have is the first 3 games as a coordinator, because nobody knows what the hell you're going to do. After about game 3, whether you try to break tendencies or not, over time, it becomes hard. And so you have to look back at those things and say, all right, in this situation, you know, there's a high percentage of the time that I've done this, and you don't know it, but that's just being a human being. That's the way it is. And so, you know, to break tendencies is one thing, but breaking tendencies for breaking tendency's sake is not very smart. So, you know, what you have to do is look within the scheme and continue to get better. So, you know, we take this time to look at where we are right now, just like we do everything else, and assess the things we're doing well, try to tweak those a little bit, keep those going, and then, like I said, personality or scheme. You know, at this point, are we wasting our time trying to do this? Is this beneficial to us as a team, or is it that we need another player in there to do this, or we don't have the personnel to do that? So that comes offensively, defensively, special teams wise. You know, as you start to look back through the games and say, okay, this has got a chance. You know, because I'm always I laugh because, you know, we don't have a bunch of bad plays. Sometimes they don't work, but trust me, we're not trying to get 0 yards on every play that when we hand the ball off. All right, there has been thought process put into it. We do have a blocking scheme, and sometimes what you have to do as a coach is say, all right, just because that play didn't work, was it the design? Or what, did we get whipped? Is our guy not good enough to block that guy? Or did he go the wrong way? And you've got about 38 seconds to figure that out before you call the next play. So, you have time right now to look back into that and say, okay, here's what we're doing well. Schematically, this works. So-and-so needs to get better here. It helps you personnel-wise, too. So that's really what's going on right now. And then we go recruiting.
All right, Coach, thanks.
All right, thanks.